Welcome, everybody. I'm Yvette. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Operations for the Connecticut Restaurant Association. This webinar or Zoom today is going to be on membership. I know we have a mix of folks that are on today that are either new to the CRA or not yet involved with the CRA. We have some existing members. We have some board members. And I know we also have some allied members that are joining us today just to hear some more. Our allied member program is our vendor program. So I'm going to keep this broad just because we have a mix of folks today on the call. What I'm going to do is give kind of a high-level summary to start. And then we do have Keith Bullier on today, who's our chairman of our board. He's going to share his story of how he became involved with the CRA and sort of his pathway and how that's impacted not only his business, but also his personal network. So I'm going to get to Keith in a moment. I wanted to just do some quick intros. Liz Berry is on the call. Liz, I'm going to have you jump on and just say hi to everybody in a minute. A lot of you have spoken with Liz. Liz is our membership and events manager. She's coming just on 1 year in a couple days and has done an incredible job. But what's so great with Liz being part of our team is that she comes from the industry, worked 15 plus years, right, as a server. So to have that perspective of working so hard in the industry, but now on the other side, we're working hard to advocate and support on the other side of the industry. So Liz, do you want to just kind of introduce yourself and say hi to everyone?
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Berry. As Yvette said, just coming on to 1 year with the CRA. It's been absolutely incredible working with the CRA. I know, working as server in the industry for so long, we all wear so many hats, and working through COVID. I remember being on the other side of it and seeing, everything that the CRA did for my restaurant that I was working in, my fellow restaurants. And it's really just been incredible to be able to be on the other side of that and work just as hard for the industry as the industry worked for me all those years. So happy to be here and really happy to answer any questions if anyone has any questions.
Thanks, Liz. And I didn't, in my intro, I've been 4.5 years with the CRA. And so I, started in 2018, did a full year 2019. And then of course I went through the pandemic with all of you. Now coming out on the other side, there's still a lot of work to do. But, it's really good of having this, 4+ years with the CRA. We have grown incredibly in the last 4 to 5 years from when our president and CEO, Scott Dolch, took over, and our board has really kind of grown. And as a whole, we've grown incredibly strong, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years. So it's a really great time to get involved. We're going to continue to grow, but that growth means that we have relationships that we've never had before. We have doors that are open to us that never opened for us before. We have a voice that is not only loud, but people are paying attention to. As a matter of fact, when things kind of come down the pipeline, they know they're going to hear from the CRA if it's something that impacts us in a negative way. And that sort of strength and that force wasn't quite at that level before. So we're really proud of all the work that as a team, and there's a lot of us that are behind the scenes making this happen, from our staff to our board of directors, our legal team, our contract lobbyist and lobbying team. We have a government relations PR team. So all these really talented, hardworking folks are in the background all the time working on behalf of the industry. We were established in 1960, so we've been around a long time, always working on behalf of the industry. But as I mentioned, there's a really sort of palpable difference of the strength that we have in the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm so happy that all of you are on. Really quickly, just high level who we are, because I know a lot of people kind of know the CRA, but not quite sure what we do. And I think the easiest way to kind of talk about who we are and what we do and why it's so important to be involved is that if there's those times where you're thinking like, who can I turn to? I have questions. Is there a resource, or is there information that's available to me? Or when there's a crazy law that comes down the pipeline, or you hear something that's been proposed, a proposed bill, and you're thinking like, how could this crazy bill get proposed? What can I do to fight it? Who are these people that even propose these bills? And you feel like you're kind of alone and on an island. You're not, and you never have been. We've always been in the background working, but that's why it's so important for you to be involved with what we're doing. If you just have a question or you need somebody to turn to, we are a resource for our members all the time. the pandemic, it was an example that, when things get really bad, you kind of look for where your lifelines are, and we're always there. And so that's where during the pandemic, everything that came down in support of the industry came through the CRA. That just kind of gives you a sense of who we are as far as those thoughts that you have when you kind of feel like you're on your own. You're not on your own. You have a whole industry group behind you that's supporting you. With that, it's so important for you to be members, because we can't do what we do without having members. So the Connecticut Restaurant Association is a nonprofit, member-based trade association that supports the restaurant and hospitality industry. So as a nonprofit, we don't get funded from an outside source. We have to raise those funds. Those funds come through member dues. It comes through sponsorships and partnerships with businesses that support the industry. And it comes through funds that we raise through our events. So we do 2 signature events every year. Our Golf Classic, which is in the end of June, coming up in a couple weeks, and our annual awards gala, the Crazies, in December. Those are both very big events for us, and it helps to raise funds for the association. We also have a charitable arm that is a 501c3, the Connecticut Hospitality Educational Foundation. Our 501c3 side, we do a lot of culinary education, culinary scholarships, workforce development. There's some really cool programs that we're working on. For example, skills training, which is a really big focus in Connecticut and nationally. We are looking at some reentry programs, so people who are formerly incarcerated that need skills trainings to come back into the workforce. Those are the kinds of things that we work on our 501c3 side, and that is fully funded by donations. And also we're working to secure some grants. So that's kind of under our umbrella. That all falls under the CRA, but we have our trade association, we have our foundation. We are member-based. That means we need to have members to be able to do what we do. That means, members pay dues. That helps us to be able to fight every single day and have a really incredible team. But more than that, we say this all the time, and it's not, some cliche thing, but it's truly power in numbers. We need to have a strong member base in order to have a strong voice. For example, if we are advocating on some issue, and elected officials will come to us and they'll say, how many members do you have? They don't ask us how many restaurants are in Connecticut. They say, how many members do you have? And sometimes it's in a specific county, region, municipality, or district. So imagine if an elected official comes to us and says, how many members do you have in my district? And we have 1, or we have none. And compare that with if we have 30 or 40 or 50 members in that district. That carries a lot more strength and a lot more force, and allows us to be able to advocate much stronger on behalf of our industry. So membership is incredibly important. We're a trade association. As I mentioned, there's the National Restaurant Association, which you've probably all heard of. The National Restaurant Association works at the national and federal level to advocate on behalf of the industry. And then under that umbrella, there are state associations in every state. So we are all separate entities, but we all work together very closely. And I want to explain that just for a minute, because the National Restaurant Association knows exactly what's happening in Connecticut for Connecticut restaurants right now. We talk to them, if not daily, almost every day, every couple of days. They are very aware of issues that are impacting restaurant owners in Connecticut, and they're extremely supportive of what we do. That's important because there are times where we have to work together. We need resources that comes through national. There's times where we have to fight not just at the state level, but at the federal level. So having a strong connection and partnership with the National Restaurant Association is so important, and they are supportive of your restaurant business. State associations, we also have incredible relationships with other state restaurant associations. That's important because when there's issues that come down the pipeline, oftentimes it comes from other states first. And so there's times where maybe there's an issue that we're facing that another state has already dealt with that issue or fought off that issue or created some strategy to support or fight some issue. We can count on our partners in other states to kind of help us through that. So we have a tremendous amount of support from our other state restaurant associations in addition to the National Restaurant Association. But what we do here in Connecticut, so nonprofit member-based trade association that supports the restaurant and hospitality industry. Anything that comes down the pipeline and it impacts your business, So when I say restaurants, caterers, food service, anything that comes down that impacts the industry, that could be laws, proposed bills, legislation, legal policy, economic policy. It can be things like a pandemic, even things like media. If there's a media story that comes out that's reflects the industry poorly or has information incorrect, anything that comes down that impacts the industry and impacts your business, we are the voice of the industry. So we're the one that will go in and advocate on all of those points on behalf of the industry. I'm going to stop there because that's a lot. Advocacy is the kind of thing where we kind of all know why advocacy is important, but until you're involved and really actively involved, it's sort of like once you see it, you can't unsee it. So before going into much more, I'm going to introduce Keith, because I think the best way to explain how all these kind of tie all these pieces together is to introduce Keith and hear his story. Keith is our chairman of our board. He's also the owner of the Main Pub in Manchester. It's a family business. I think the oldest family restaurant in Manchester. He's on Main Street, so you can't get more, Main Street, USA. Single operator. A lot of times people say to us, what difference do I make? I'm just a small business. I'm a single operator. And Keith is going to tell us how much of a difference that every single voice makes. I love the story of Keith, coming in, getting involved with the CRA, joining our legislative committee, joining our board, joining our executive committee, and now as our chairman. It's just an incredible path. So with that, Keith, I'm going to turn it over to you to share your story and just talk about how being part of the CRA has changed your business personally and professionally.
Absolutely. Thank you very so much, Yvette, for having me here this morning, and good morning, everybody. As Yvette mentioned, my name is Keith Bowyer. I'm the owner and operator of the Main Pub, Grill, Taps, and Music in Manchester. Currently going into our 43rd year of business here in the wonderful town of Manchester. We are the longest running restaurant in this town of over 60,000 people. My dad started the restaurant when I was 4 years old. I am currently 46 years old. About somewhere around 2008, I came back to the state after being gone for a little bit of time, going to college, and came back to work with my dad. And eventually, a few years later, bought him out, and here we are. But along the path of restaurant life, I got to meet some really cool people. And one of those cool persons that I got to meet was Helmar Wolf, who is also a member of the CRA, happens to be the owner of the Mill Restaurant Group, and has 5, 6, 7 restaurants. The Mill on the River, Market Grill, there are public restaurants. Abigail's out in Simsbury, and Cal's in Springfield. Quite a pioneer in the restaurant industry around here, quite a godfather, if you will, to me in that regard. And I was always a customer of his, and he was always a customer of mine, and we just knew each other for many, many years. But somewhere along the path, he said to me, he goes, I got an organization I think you should join. I think you would find it beneficial, and I think that he saw something that he thought would be useful to the CRA as well. And being a single operator, if there are any single operators on this call or that'll be watching this, I understand, much like you do, that our days are very full. If we're not washing dishes, we're waiting tables, we're seating guests, or on some occasions we're fixing, backed up toilets. Whatever the job may be in a restaurant, when you're a single operator, all that kind of falls on your plate. And that very much still is the case with me today. But he was very persistent about, hey, come meet these people, come have a sit down with these people. And I have to tell you, I was intimidated a little bit, because at that time, or at least my history, and some of you as well, I may have heard this over the time, is that the CRA was a popularity contest. It was the Hartford or West Hartford Restaurant Association. It was representative of all the needs and causes that may affect, quote unquote, small little guy like myself, or all of us that are small little guys. So that was a perception that was out there, and it was a perception that was fed to me. But I really respected Helmar, and I was willing to give it a chance. And very early on, I understood that perception doesn't always meet reality. And not to say that things may have been that way in the past, but there were some changes that were soon to come. And at the time that I was being courted, so to speak, I felt there was a need for some leadership. Also been a person my entire life that never was able to stay quiet when I felt like something was wrong, people weren't being treated right. I remember going back into grammar school, my mother said, the teacher's always like, Keith's always got an opinion about something. He tends to always speak his mind. And my mother always said, as long as you do it respectfully and wait your turn, I will always support you standing up for what you believe is right. So it started younger for me, but when I get to this age where I'm running a restaurant and I start seeing things, specifically policy or law that gets passed, or when you're paying an unemployment insurance bill, and I'm fighting every call and writing every note and doing all those things because, I don't need my merit rating going up 0.5%, because at this operation, at this level, that's very painful. Or minimum wage battles, or, there's a multitude of things that have come down the pike since then. But those were things that bothered me, because I was now in the guts of running a restaurant, looking at the numbers every day, recognizing how small and thin the margins were. And I was like, I don't need other people coming at me at other times taking money that I was like, wait, you already take enough, or why is this happening, or this doesn't make sense. So tie that with now an opportunity to join an association or a group of people that were literally the same, similar minded. Now, here's the intimidating part. A lot of those people at the time were just what you may have perceived, or to some degree what Yvette had said. We have a lot of restaurateurs on our board or on our membership that have multitudes of restaurants that are multiple, not sole proprietors. They have, 6, 7, 8 restaurants, 3 or 4. Maybe they don't actually operate the restaurant, but they're the owner and they have management. So these were different worlds of mine that I had no familiarity with. And I felt intimidated. What are these guys going to think about me as a single operator? Why would my voice matter? Why are they going to give me the time of day? Because I'm this little peon, or, and you can all see how you might feel this way. But very soon and immediately, the arms were opened by all these great individuals. And I can think back to some of the first people I met were that still are very active on our board is Tim Adams, owner of J. Timothy's Restaurant, Dan Miser, owner of some fabulous restaurants down in Mystic, Engine Room, Oyster Club, Phil Barnett, who happens to run Wooden Tap Restaurant Group, Michael Marchetti is a restaurant tour down in Stanford area with 3 restaurants down there. And immediately they opened their arms and their minds to me, and quickly it made me want to be more involved. It made me feel comfortable to be in the environment, and it helped me to gain more confidence. And as time went by, I found myself wanting to get more and more involved, and I joined the legislative committee, which was our arm that basically handles just that, legislative issues. And we met and talked about upcoming session and what would be the strategy of bills that we felt were going to be negatively impactful to the restaurant industry, and how we would combat those, and who we would do that with, which senators and representatives we would speak to. And I got excited about that. It was exciting to, fight the good fight to some degree, and now you have a bunch of people that are similarly minded to do so. And I have to say that as much as I wanted to be helpful, I'll be very clear, and I was honest that when I started and joined the association at that time I was going to be selfish here as well. I wanted to see where I could take myself and my business by being around these very successful people and learn from them and see what I could absorb from them and take from them. And I told them that literally straight up the first day. I was like, I'm here to help, but I'm also here to do better by myself. And I can tell you from the time I joined, which was about 5 or 6 years ago, 1 year prior to our current CEO and president, Scott Dolch's term, it was his predecessor. I joined with 1 year with her, and then Scott came along, and I have almost doubled my restaurant sales in that period of time. So my restaurant has done the same numbers for 30, 35 some odd years, 40 years, coming up in that number. And then when I opened my mind and my heart and my ability by giving more, I found that I completely received that tenfold back, not only in just tutelage, hey, I need help with this. Who do you use for this? I think this guy's charging me too much. You got this. Hey, I really haven't delved too much into my QuickBooks. I never had the time. Anthony Sulu from Joey Garlic came to my restaurant. We looked at my P&L. I mean, I hadn't met the man more than 6 months, and he literally helped me break down my P&L. And so point being is, then all of a sudden I springboard to doing numbers I've never seen before. And then we're now in the pandemic hits, right? And then here's all of a sudden the major shutdown. We're all restaurateurs. We're all like, no one tells us what to do. You can't tell us to shut our restaurant down. What, are you out of your mind? 2 weeks? You got no way, no how. Maybe 2 days. And as as a group, initially, I'll never forget this, we had a CRA phone call every morning that anybody could get on, whether you were a member or not. And it was Scott just giving information on a daily to minute to hour basis, what the regulations would be, what the shutdowns would be. And then it became how to get help, where was the money, how to apply, go this route, go that route. And I was on every one of those calls. And I can tell you to this day, the CRA is the reason that this restaurant in Manchester survived the pandemic, because of the flow of information, my ability to access that information, access to funding, the stuff that the CRA was doing to help support with local municipalities. I cannot begin to tell you, and I very clearly state this, without the CRA, I probably would not be here to this day coming out of the pandemic with all the help that Scott Dolch and his team, Yvette, and all the people you've mentioned, and as well as these board of directors. And so we knew about the pandemic, we're getting our feet under us. Scott had, chirped a little bit in my ear about, what do you think about being the next chairman once Dan's done? And I was like, God, I got my hands full, man. Staffing is still a problem. I don't know where this restaurant's going to go. I want to be helpful, but I can't do that if I'm going to do it half-assed. I'm not going to do anything half-assed. I've never done anything half-assed. So I'm not going to join and be the chairman of this association if I can't give it my all, because not only do I don't know where the restaurant's going, but like I mentioned earlier, I am this sole proprietor. I am the little guy. Like Vivette said, I'm the little restaurateur at Main Street, and Scott turned around to me and said, I know that, and that's exactly why I want you in this spot. He goes, because the way this association has changed, our perception has changed, the growth that we've gained, the foothold we now have at the Capitol and with the governor and the politicians, like you being able to tell your story as if I'm giving you today, this morning, to let other restaurateurs see and feel it. And also you get to speak for the little guy, and understand that, when we go up to the Capitol, I can't be sitting in front of the governor or a legislator from Stanford, and they maybe would have looked at a previous chairman and said, don't worry, it won't affect you and your community, this 1% tax. You're in a very wealthy area. Well, they can't have that conversation with me. They can't blow me off as being this super successful, deep-pocketed guy. I am not that. I am the farthest thing from that. But what I am is someone that wants to continue to speak on behalf of this industry. And the more time I've spent in the CRA, the more confident I've gotten with that, the more the relationships have grown, the more my business has grown, the more I've been able to network. And when I get now in that Capitol and sit down in front of all, I've met personally, so you all know this, in the last 2 weeks, me and our lobbyist, Nicole Griffin, I think I've met with over 8 to pushing 10 legislators on behalf of this industry that you all are here and you represent. I'm there speaking on your behalf, talking to these individuals in my Main Pub work shirt and my dirty shoes, and them seeing that, listen, these are the issues. This is how it affects me. I've done this in my entire life. Don't let a legislator from down in Danbury tell you that she understands how our restaurant industry works when she's never even breathed what it's like to pour a cup of coffee. Whereas I've bled and sweat this my entire life. And so I come with that perspective. I come with that energy. I love this industry. I love what I do. And the things just kind of compound and work together. And I keep feeling like I keep growing. And at the same time, the association keeps growing. And again, there was some selfishness at the beginning, and everything is paid back in spades to me, as well as I feel like I've been able to continue to be confident and to provide a voice for this industry that is unique in nature, as well as hopefully represents you all well. And that when I speak, I always tell everybody, I speak from the franchisees and the multiple unit restaurants right down to the people that are single operators in a small town, semi-small town like Manchester, Connecticut, in a very blue collar town. It's really it's a simple cliche. You get out of it what you put into it. And I don't care what you choose to have that to be, right? Whether that be, being the best parent you can be, being the best employer you can be, the best friend, husband, wife, whatever it may be. With this in my business, I obviously get out what I put into it. And the CRA is the same way. If you are a member of the CRA and you don't, let's follow the emails or don't attend an event or don't take up some of the opportunities that are there and all the discounts that it provides and look to take all that, well, then yes, I could see where you could say the CRA has no return for me, but that means you didn't access any of the abilities and tools that are there for us that we provide. I always say to people at $400 a location, well, one thing we'll give you right off the rip is our legal service. You get free time with our attorney that well beyond will shoot that. You got that value just with that alone. Never mind the discounts on insurance, your licensing, the advocacy of which we fight back bills. Like Yvette said, some of these bills half these restaurants in the state, you don't even know they're there because we beat them down, and they don't hit your doorstep because we're fighting on your behalf. The ability to network, the ability to literally take your business to a better place. When I tell you, I've doubled my numbers. I've doubled what this restaurant is doing. Now that's that's the involvement in the CRA, that's the success through COVID. That's where I've grown personally, and well as how to become a better employer myself. I've been able to attain better employees because we treat them in a different way because of practices I've learned from other restaurateurs. So again, I could go on and on, Yvette. So I know that I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I hope you get the idea for people that, anybody's voice matters, any size of your business matters, but we are only as strong as the group as a whole. And it feels goofy because I'm not a salesman, and it's not a sales pitch, and it shouldn't. I almost look at it as it shouldn't be a sales pitch. It should almost be an automatic in regards to you open your business, you get your business license, you get your liquor license, and you join the CRA. Because honestly, there's no negativity that comes with it, and the representation that you will get from us is incredible. And then the continuation of our growth by growing by numbers. And if someone else feels the same way that I feel, or I inspire someone to maybe speak up and say something and recognize, and I'll tell you this, a lot of people say this, and I'll wrap with this. I'm a parent of a 6 and a 4-year-old. I operate my restaurant 7 days a week. I'm on the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce here in town. I'm on the board of directors for my kids' daycare, and I'm also the board chairman of the CRA. I find time. You just got to make time. And if it's valuable to you and it's worth something to you, then you will find the time to do that. And again, I hope that there's more people that feel that way and recognize at the end of the day, we are better as a whole. The representation is literally that, we represent all walks of life, all, and Scott will say this as well. We're not a political organization. We don't side one way or the other. We are a business friendly organization, and we come in from that perspective as well. So Yvette, I'll leave with that. I hope I didn't go too far and too long. So I'm sorry, but that's what I got for you as far as an intro.
No, it's perfect. And actually you answered some questions that I was going to ask you. And I do have a couple of questions I want to ask you, but I'm so glad you mentioned the, you actually have to put some work in, because I know we did have a question on how can the CRA help to promote or grow a business. We can talk for hours about that because there's so many resources, but I talk a lot, especially with our allied members, which is our vendor program, because they're like, I'm going to join, and then what do I get? And like, I always say this, I know it's so corny, but it's like, if you join a gym, you don't get in shape unless you show up. And it's sort of the same thing here. Like, there's so many resources available to you. You have to be part of it. But I do want to ask you, Keith, because we have some members that have been members for years. They do their part by being a member. They pay their dues every year, and they have for years, some for decades. But not everybody, and yes, it's important to make time, but there are some people out there who just want to be part of it because they want to do their part. So just want to ask you, Keith, as somebody who may just want to be a member, to make sure that they're getting access to information and have resources there. But is there value for somebody that doesn't get as actively involved, maybe doesn't want to be the chairman someday? So is there value in being a member if you just want to be part of it? Because I love your story, but I can imagine that could be intimidating to somebody who's like, I just wanted to find out about being a member.
Yeah. So
what do you think?
If you're at that point where you're finding out that you want to be a member, but yet you recognize I want to do that, but I don't want to commit to more than that, because you're maybe like me and you just like, I'm not going to tell you I'm going to do something if I can't be there. Just by joining that membership, adding to the voice that we have, the number one thing I would say to that, and you mentioned this as well, Yvette, in your intro, is you've added to our numbers, right? We now represent more people. When we go to those legislators, maybe you are that person that is now in the district where we had no representation. You are a restaurant, and you agree with what our mission is and what our purpose is. And you recognize you maybe can't be at the Capitol with us, but your dollars as far as joining a membership and being able to add your name to the roster, I think that is probably initially right off the rip. And then all of a sudden you're supporting us, helping to create policy or fight policy or put policy forward that ultimately would be beneficial to the restaurant that you're running or the business that your entity is you're in control of, and at the end of the day, helping that bottom line of yours. And so by you being that member, being someone we can add to our voice, I think that's the biggest one right there. Outside of that, Yvette, as we've talked about, and you can probably go into more detail of this, the discounts, the information flow, the emails you guys send in regards to, hey, check this out, do this, if you read your email, you'll see that we'll send you stuff pretty constantly that is there at the taking to, at some way or somehow make your business easier. Maybe you needed to find a new insurance person with, we have all these allied partners that work with the CRA and work with CRA members and provide discounts. we have Ryan, we have, I don't know if many of you use ASCAP, BMI, CSCAP, have to pay those licensing fees for your restaurants for the music. You get discounts there. So there's a multitude of ways of grabbing value if you decide that, that's the only way at the level of your participation, yes. And if you're not looking to be a board or director, or you're not looking to, or have the time to, give more than just your membership. But that would be my answer to that.
Thank you. I have a tough question, Keith. This is a comment that we hear on occasion. We haven't heard it as much lately in the last few years because the value of what we do is pretty clear. But when it comes to advocacy, we fight for the industry as a whole. And yes, we fight on behalf of our members. Our work benefits the entire industry. What do you say to people that say, well, I don't need to join, you're going to do that work anyway? And I know that's incredibly, number one, irresponsible and short-sighted. But what would you say to somebody that sort of has that mentality? Well, I don't need to do it. I don't need to be part of that because you're going to do the work anyway.
Yeah, that's that again, at the end of the day, everyone has the right to choose and feel and act the way they want to do. And I ultimately that, your first reaction could be that's a little selfish, right? Like, and especially more so from someone or us that are so heavily involved. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to speak on behalf of that restaurateur because you know what? Maybe the thing hasn't happened yet to enlighten them as into where the value lies, but it very well may be there. And I would probably just tell that restaurateur, I understand that. I'm still going to fight for you anyways. And maybe at some point you will hit an epiphany that they recognize where the value here lies. Can't force anyone to do it, but again, I think it wouldn't take a whole lot of common sense if we laid everything in front of you to recognize the tremendous value that is here. But at the end of the day, you can bring a horse to water, you can't make them drink. We have 8,000 restaurants in Connecticut. I think we have a little over pushing 3,000 that are members, or a little shy of that number, right? So we don't even have half, right? We don't say when we go to the Capitol, we're here representing the CRA restaurants. We talk about speaking about all restaurants, and we will continue to fight that mission. And again, hopefully the bell curve grows enough where, there's more membership, and it grabs more of those people and grabs an understanding for them as to getting closer maybe to an individual like myself or Christina down in New Haven. You spend 10 minutes with us, spend 15 minutes with us. You'll recognize that we have all the same problems you do. So we can all communicate no matter what level of the restaurant is, whether you are a 5-star white linen restaurant or you are the pizza joint that's right across the street that does takeout only. The problems are all the same. So we have that in common. And so what you'll find is when we have that in common and you start thinking about, wow, this pisses me off, or this is a problem, wish somebody would do something about that. Well, hey, guess what? There's people right on the radar that knew that was coming before it even hit the paper or before you even knew it. And we're already working against that.
I always say that it's interesting. By the time you as a restaurant owner operator find out about something, we've been working on it for months, if not years. So, right. And as you mentioned, you touched on this too. There's so many things that have come down, really horrible, dangerous things that would be really bad for your business that we fought off that you never even knew about. So the storm comes, we fight it. And it sort of kind of goes unrecognized because if you're in the inner circle, but that's also a thing too, where, Keith, as you've mentioned, like we're going to do it anyway, we're fighting, but, be part of that because it makes a big difference and it's just the right thing to do. You mentioned Christina, and Christina, I'm totally going to put you on the spot here, but Christina Fitzgerald is also on our board of directors. She's with Union League Café in New Haven, and has been part of what we're doing for the last couple of years. I think you also started the same time I did, 2019, I believe. And so kind of listening in here, is there anything that you want to add from your perspective? I mean, you have a very different type of business. You're in New Haven, which has I think about the roundtable that we did in New Haven. That was a perfect example where we had restaurateurs who were during the pandemic struggling, and they were frustrated because their voice wasn't being heard. And they came to us, and it was like 1 or 2 or 3 people. And we were like, well, first of all, you need a lot more people than that. But they wanted to go guns blazing to town hall. And we had to be like, whoa, that's not how things get done. And so kind of bringing people together, coordinating, unifying their voice, that really made an impact. And I always think about that because New Haven had some really, really tough issues to face that were unique to specifically New Haven. But anyway, I want to turn it over to you, Christina, with your time with the CRA and kind of any input, just hearing what Keith has said and what we've talked about on this webinar. What do you want to share?
Well, thank you both. Thank you, Keith, and thank you, Yvette. And anyone on this call that is not yet a member, I strongly advise. Like I said, I started in 2019. Union League Café has always been a member. Now, Union League Café will be 30 years old in this August. I have been an employee here for 11 years and owner since 2019. So in 2019, owner operated as well. You know, we're here 80 hours, just as Keith, myself, and my two partners. Walking in 2019, as you know, being offered the position to be a board member, I was like, what? I don't know what you want me to do. What? How? You know. Also, I have two children, single mom, and I was like, I can't believe. But it was the smartest decision. I was so scared at first to be a board member, but even just to be a member, I mean, my time is not, I don't put as much in as Keith does, just because that's the way, you know, it rolls. But without the CRA going through the pandemic, and even now, what I've learned at my fingertips, jump onto the CRA website. I need, just 2 weeks ago, I mean, I've been a member for how long? I'm like, I need SafeServe. Of course, it's everywhere, but it's in this one portal where we can, you know, gather 15 people from the kitchen, get it done itself. The information that is so at your fingertips, being a member, the benefit from here forever. Texting over to Ryan, you know, about one fair wage is something that, you know, we're now all dealing with. It's like, if we do this, you know, it's just a quick question. He spends 7 minutes with me, and I have just, you know, I didn't have to do 7 hours of research, reading this, reading that. He made the CRA, especially Ryan on the board, being the attorney, where all of this information is at your fingertips and easy to get to. I feel like we are running the business now so much better because the CRA is underneath me. And I have such a close relationship with everyone. You don't have to be a board member. Absolutely not. You just being a member itself and shooting over an email to Yvette, shooting over an email to Liz. Can you send me some information on this? Have you heard about this? You know, and it's in 24 hours, it's right there. And not even talking about too, like them fighting for, especially here in New Haven, where it's a little small niche. Everyone's like, oh yeah, Yale's right across the street. I mean, trees look beautiful today. And no, you have everything at your fingertips. No, it's a whole nother fight here in New Haven. And having the CRA behind us to help get our message to the mayor here to help our businesses. We really got our message across to my specific area nicely, calmly, professionally. Here is a letter. This is what we want to talk about. We need a Zoom, instead of us going down with such emotion, and everything's coming out in emotion because we care so deeply about our businesses here. You know, Scott and all you guys were just our voice, and we did it right. And we did get some changes made. We did have some of the monies go into marketing. Some of those money went into the New Haven Restaurant Week, where he had taken away the city money to promote any marketing for downtown New Haven tourism. So he understood our needs in a professional manner, as opposed to us coming out so emotionally. So I think being a member, even just to have reaching out to someone across the Claire's next door, you know, if I know that she's a member as well, and Olea, you know, right down the road, just to have someone to lean on, and hey, how are we going to fight this? What can we do in our restaurant? You know, Martin Looney comes here every quarterly. I'm now able, because of being a member on the board, I'm now knowledgeable enough to see him and say, hey, so this is what we talked about in our last meeting. What do you feel? Well, I feel this way, but have you thought of our perspective? You know, it's just having the information in our minds. And I really only have that because of the ease of the CRA and their advocacy through all the information. It's something, I don't know, again, if we could have existed as much as we have been. I'm very thankful to be a member, and I'm always pushing for others to join, because we're not as strong at being a little person. It's why the unions have so much say in everything, because they are massive. We need to be massive so we can be heard, and our businesses will stay open. That's
Thank
it.
you. Thank you for that. I think you make a point, and I don't think it's just New Haven. Connecticut has a reputation of not being a business-friendly state. We know that. And I remember a few weeks ago, we were in Niantic at a legislative wage and compliance seminar that we hosted for the industry, free to our members. And Senator Formica was there. And I remember a restaurateur there raised her hand, was hearing all these bills that were proposed that we're working on and fighting. And she was like, this is ridiculous. This doesn't make any sense. These bills are crazy. How can it be that they have this much strength? There's no way it's going to go through. And we said, yes, way that these bills might go through. But Senator Formica stood up and said, that's why it's so important for you to be involved, because in Connecticut, when proposed bills get voted on by legislators, we don't have the numbers. This is Connecticut. And so we need to make sure that those legislators have heard from us, from restaurants, that to understand how those bills will impact their business. Otherwise, they're voting on those bills without ever hearing from you. So I think that's a great point, and that it's not just New Haven. It's statewide, where we know Connecticut's not a business-friendly state. So the strength that we have in membership helps to kind of lend to that and make sure that our voice gets heard. You mentioned something, Christina, too, that we had another question that came in from somebody that said, like, is there an email or a phone number that we can call if we have questions? And absolutely, to be honest, I think that's probably, besides advocacy, the number one benefit is that we're always here 7 days a week. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to Liz, you can reach out to Scott, our whole team, and any question you have, a lot of tip questions, any sort of legal compliance questions, or maybe, somebody has a question about third-party delivery or credit card fees or POS or whatever. I mean, really, anytime you have a question, like Christina said, don't spend 7 hours trying to figure out on your own. Reach out to us. That's what we're there for. And we have an incredible extended network. So if it's not something that we know how to answer, we will connect you with someone who can. So even just, Keith mentioned our members do get a quarterly consult with Ryan O'Donnell, our labor and employment attorney. Even that pays for it. But the time you will save by having a resource at your fingertips, I personally think that's one of the greatest benefits of what we offer. So Christina, I appreciate your input. Keith, I also, Doug, I know you're on this call too. I don't know if there's anything you want to come off and speak, or if you want to put it in the chat. Oh, there you are. So Doug with the Amber Room in Danbury. And Doug, you're also on the event catering side. So I think sometimes we've been talking about restaurants, but this is the whole industry, and you're very actively involved as a member. Is there anything you want to share based on what you've heard?
I would just add to that. I agree with everything Keith and Christina said. I joined CRA in 2020 during the pandemic, and it was a huge resource for us. We got heavily involved with CRA, and I'm on the legislative committee. I've gone down to DC with Keith and Christina and Scott, and it's just an incredible organization. And I highly recommend, if you haven't joined, to join, because the value is truly invaluable. I can call up Scott or Yvette or Keith or Christina and ask them any questions that we have challenges with. In the event space, there's similar challenges to restaurants, but sometimes a different set of circumstances. And mostly the access is truly incredible. Obviously, for those that may or may not know, there's the tip wage credit that is one fair wage that is being highly, highly debated right now in Hartford. And for us, although it doesn't directly affect us, it affects us. And I had the conversation with Senator Kushner just the other day to tell her why it's such a poor bill. And I was armed with the information from the CRA to be able to have that conversation with her. So it really gives you the knowledge that you need in order to run a successful business.
Thank you, Doug. And thank you to Doug, Keith, Christina. I mean, I think, Keith, you mentioned this, but by giving, you get so much back in return. And the three of you, what you've done for in support of what our work and restaurants and the industry across the state is really incredible. I know you don't do it for the recognition, but appreciate so much all the work that you guys put in. We are available if you have questions. If you wanted to set up some time to speak with me or Liz or anyone on our team, that you have questions specifically about you, your business, anything specific about being part of the CRA, just start by being a member. You can go to our website, ctrestaurant.org, and just click on join now. Restaurant associations have different dues models that are usually based in some aspect of size, whether that's sales revenue, number of employees, et cetera. The way that we structure in Connecticut to be kind of more fair and equitable and easier for us to manage is based on location. So a single location restaurant or food service operator, the dues are $450 a year. If you have multiple locations under shared ownership, it's an additional $225 per year. So very simple. You will get back your investment in multitudes as long as you're involved and you're taking advantage of the benefits that we offer to you. Liz, you've been in the background. I don't know if there's anything that we might have missed or anything that you want to mention, you being, very much in touch with our members on a daily basis and also helping to manage our Servsafe program. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of add to the conversation?
Yeah, no, I just want to say, thank you to Keith and Christina and Doug for your stories. They're so inspiring. And I had my camera off, but I was cheering over here because it's just so true. It's like just the support and the network that we have and that we create and that we offer to our members and, even to our non-members whenever they need anything. It's fantastic. And, everybody needs support. So thank you for sharing that. And I did just want to touch on Servsafe really quickly. We do offer Servsafe classes in person and online. We offer weekly classes throughout the state, and we offer discounts to our members for those in-person classes. Everybody needs Servsafe. The FDA just updated the food code, and with more mandates now, it's just something that everyone needs. Definitely take advantage of the savings that members get. And I'm always here on the other end of my computer to answer any questions, to help you navigate your registrations or anything like that. So, for your employees, it's a great resource to have someone who's just always here to help and to help you navigate and get the certifications that you need. So if anyone has any questions about that, always shoot them over to me.
Thank you, Liz. Any questions that you have, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. We're accessible 7 days a week. And that's it. We appreciate everybody's time today.